All right. Hello, everybody. How are you doing tonight? Let us know where you're tuning in from and if you have met or heard of Lilian before. Lilian, welcome back to the channel. I am so excited to have you back because you've been on as an industry expert, but to have you on as an author now, and congrats on your new book.
Thank you so much for having me, Catherine. It's great to be back.
So happy to have you here. Again, congratulations. So, the last time you came on, you were giving us tips really on how to, market our books a little bit. But now you've written a book of your own and it's all about that. But is it specifically for book writers or is it for publicity in general?
It focuses a lot on PR for authors, but also creative entrepreneurs and small business owners in general. But I do have a lot of examples in the book and case studies from my own clients who happen to be authors and things like that.
Awesome. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about, for those who don't know who you are, because a lot of us know you. You are an indie champion. You've talked about other people's books for years. You've connected authors. I know you've connected me with other people, for example, and other marketing experts in the past. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into writing, and then about your book.
Sure, yeah. So, for anyone who hasn't seen my previous chats with Catherine, I am a PR coach and publicist, and I empower authors to gain the confidence to unlock the superpowers behind their stories and to push past limiting beliefs like their fear, their anxiety, and their imposter syndrome to really harness the power of public relations to get their story out there in front of the right readers by leveraging the relationships they build with the media, like reviewers, podcasters, people like that. And I started my writing journey on the fiction side when I was very young, and I'd always loved the craft of storytelling. That parlayed into my business as a publicist and a PR coach because I wanted to see how I could help other people, authors, get their stories out there to the right readers to build trust and credibility and to build powerful relationships with the media that champion those stories in order to continue to grow their audiences. So the idea for this book actually came about right around the time, probably about the first year or so that I had initially started the PR coaching side of my business. And I had a lot of authors and entrepreneurs in my audience say to me, hey, do you have a book? Would you write a book? Because following you on social media is fantastic. I get the tips on a daily basis. But what I'm not getting is the whole picture, right? I don't have a resource that I can flip through. I don't have something I can refer back to in case I forget a previous point you made. Is writing a book something you'd consider? And at that time, I was speaking with a lot of authors, I was working with a lot of authors, and they started to inspire me to get into writing. I thought maybe it's time for my lifelong dream to come full circle and for me to publish my own book after learning what I've learned about the publishing process from authors and also book coaches, editors, people like that. So I thought, okay, I have all of this experience and this knowledge in PR. How am I going to structure this book in a way that's going to make it easy for authors to understand? So I thought, okay, let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning and structure this book for somebody who maybe has heard the word PR but doesn't have that understanding of it. This book is meant to be that educational resource that's going to empower them to take action. So when I built the framework for the book, I thought, okay, the beginning is let's just start off talking about why PR is powerful to begin with. What makes it different from your email marketing and your social media and your online advertising? And after we do that, that's when I thought the second most important piece, which I focus quite extensively on in this book, is to really talk about the power of mindset in PR and marketing. Why is it powerful? Why is it influential? How does it manifest itself when you have a lot of anxiety about getting out there, when you're frustrated about your lack of progress, when you're impatient when it comes to building a strategy as an author or an entrepreneur? What does that look like? And I give mantras, actionable tips, accessible tips that I use myself on a daily basis and I give my clients all the time to help them build that toolbox that's going to help them recognize what triggers these beliefs, their fear, their anxiety, and their imposter syndrome, and learn how to push past them. So that's a huge part of the book, but I also really dive into all the different elements of a strategy, like what's a media kit? Why do you need one? How can you build one? What goes into a PR pitch? All of the different elements of a successful pitch, including dissecting how to change up your pitch if you're pitching a magazine versus a podcast versus a radio show versus a TV show. And I even dive into what a lot of authors come to me about, and that is interviews. How to practice for one, how to prepare for one. When you're in the middle of an interview, how to answer difficult questions, how to keep the conversation going, and how to end it on a high note. All of these different elements. And throughout all of that, going into media promotion and how to share things like videos and audio clips the right way, I always dive into the tools that authors can use too. Organized by budget. Here are some of the tools out there on the marketplace right now that are going to help you save time and energy when it comes to launching a PR campaign. This is a book that when I decided to release it, I didn't just want to have people review it and then put it aside. What I wanted authors to do with it was to read it, sit down, absorb it, and then be inspired to take action. But to make it easier for them to do that, that's also why I released the companion glossary and the workbook that's really going to help them understand like the definitions of the terms I use, all the vocabulary in the book. And then the workbook is really a space where they can sit down and start brainstorming through each chapter of the book, everything from, okay, what's scaring me about this? What's holding me back? All the way to, hey, I actually think I want to get up and speak. Let me brainstorm what type of events I want to speak at as an author. So it really kind of covers the gamut to really inspire authors and entrepreneurs to take action on developing that PR campaign that's really going to help them achieve their goals and ultimately sell more books.
That's amazing. And so it's sort of like this giant writer's toolbook. So if you don't know what you don't know yet, writers could pick it up from the start. And then people who've been doing it a long time, like we've known each other for years now, we can pick it up and refine our process and say, this really speaks to me in this aspect, not the other. And I love that you've put it in one book because every time you release a book, I feel like you grow a little bit and you realize, oh, yeah, that's what that meant. And you can sort of go back and re reference. Oh, okay, that's where I quit tracking last time. And now I'm ready to absorb this. So it's not like you said, put it down and then you're done. And instead, you can come back to it and refer back to it, which is fantastic. And you've always been so generous with the knowledge you have, but with so much data it can be overwhelming as a writer, especially if you're new, to pick up this stuff and go say it. And I just want everybody watching to know, no, this is not a sponsored video. I'm not being paid to recommend the book, but I definitely do believe in the cause that Lilian has really shown the last few years for free, sharing with whoever wants to hear about it. And highly recommend checking out the book, which is why the link's in the description box. The Powerful Publicity Prescription. And this is the first nonfiction book I've ever featured on the channel because it's such a wealth of information for writers in general. And Lillian's just been amazing and a cornerstone of the community in so many ways. I'm curious to know, as you were going through the process of self publishing, because we can be industry professionals and get really good at helping other people, but going through it ourselves can feel like a totally different animal. Um, when you started out on your own path to self publish this book, is there anything that you changed about your process along the way or that you found easier because of your knowledge going in?
It was one of the main things for me that was a lot easier was kind of understanding the revision process because I found that, and it's really funny that we're talking about this because throughout this process, I'm already thinking about areas I could perhaps put in a second edition that I didn't quite, I sort of gave a high level overview of in the first book, but I would really love to dive into other areas like working with book clubs, getting, speaking gigs with different writers associations and conferences, doing things like really diving into these are the things that can really, really affect your budget and all of the elements surrounding that as opposed to just giving an overview. But as I was going through the revisions for the first time, I was kind of looking at, thinking to myself, what do I need to cut out that's unnecessary versus what can I leave in because it's vital to put an emphasis on this to make sure that, hey, I'm not just repeating myself for the sake of repeating myself. These are the key takeaways from a particular chapter that you need to remember. So I found that doing the revision process was a lot easier in that I'm looking at it from a standpoint of as a first time author, if I didn't have the marketing and PR background myself, what would be enough information to get me thinking about this process, but isn't going to overwhelm me and make me think, wow, there's way too much stuff in here. I don't even know how to take the first step. So for me, it was really about putting myself in my reader's shoes, in an author's shoes, and figuring out like what's going to make this accessible to them, actionable to them, and also give them enough real world examples and case studies where they can actually see this is how PR can be used to help authors from success stories from my own clients who are authors. And at
Mm.
the same time, because I was spending throughout this process, spending a lot of time speaking to a lot of authors about the nuances of finding other contractors to help me with this when I was looking for an editor, when I was looking for a cover designer, what precisely do I need to look for that's a necessity for me to invest in to get this book to where I want it to be, right? So it was really about deciding between I don't think this is a book I need developmental edits for because it's nonfiction, there is a structure, you know, I think copy editing and having an extra set of eyes look at it and tell me, hey, you know that part that you were thinking about cutting out because you've repeated it 4 times? You can cut this part out. And I was actually more concerned about finding a cover designer than I was an editor.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
Great
and
cover, by the way.
oh, thank you for that. I love my cover designer to death. Her name is Carolina Wodniak, and she did a fantastic job really getting my vibe because I wanted something that encompassed the global impact of public relations, but I didn't want it to be super stuffy and corporate, right? I wanted it to match with my vibe, which is why I went with the Rip newspaper on like being more casual, taking a more personal approach, meeting my clients where they're at, and also generating excitement that you can also get publicity that's ripped from the headlines, things like
Mhm.
that. So that was really sort of my line of thinking with the cover, but I was actually really worried about it at first because I had no idea what I wanted. I
Mhm.
I went and did some research on the other books that were on PR on Amazon and places like that. And what I discovered not only reinforced why I was writing the book, but it also told me what direction I didn't want to go in for the cover. Because a lot of those books were textbooks, student textbooks, corporate. There really wasn't a book out there that was written to support indie authors, to
Yeah.
support small business owners and entrepreneurs. And I thought, this is the book for that that's going to fill that gap because I'm tired of seeing authors getting left behind
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this with PR and marketing. And when I saw those covers too, I thought, this is too corporate. I'm not creating a student textbook. I want something that's modern and contemporary, but that also respects the global impact and the history of public relations.
Yeah.
So for me, when I found my cover designer, and it just so happened that both my cover designer and editor are in similar Facebook groups to me. And I knew a lot of local entrepreneurs who had worked with them previously. So that really, really helped me find them. It was really about developing that partnership and that trust and understanding that with both of their combined experiences, I could trust that they understood what I was looking for, what I needed, and it wasn't about taking over and
Mhm.
changing my vision for the book to suit themselves, right? And it
Oh
really
yeah.
helped too that my editor is also a fellow publicist who has put out her own books as well. So she really understood where I was going with it and who I was trying to help. And both of them were among the first two people to give me their endorsements for the book. And then I went out and got some from podcasters, from best-selling authors, indie book coaches, all of these industry leaders who have, just like me, worked with a ton of authors themselves. Some of them have been published as well, and they really got the essence of what it was I was trying to do, and that is really empower authors to gain that confidence to take action.
Yeah. Yeah. And that leads me to ask too, certain aspects of PR, as with any marketing in, books or any industry in general, but especially books, it seems to change a lot faster. And so looking at this book, you already hinted at possibly a second edition one day, but how many of the core concepts that are in this book are sort of those timeless concepts, right? Like what goes into a marketing package today, or your author package, is pretty much the same today as it was when I started 4 years ago, but other elements, like how you approach reviewers, how you approach interviewers, have changed in the last 4 or 5 years. So if a writer is picking this up for the first time, what do they need to know going in, as far as, the majority of it's going to be the same for a while, or they should keep doing research on it?
When it comes to building that framework, what I emphasize in this book is that the framework of a PR campaign is going to be the same no matter what genre an author's working in. So, what I mean by that is every author needs a media kit because you want to have a centralized location where you have things like your book cover images, your bio, your own headshot images, things like that. You're going to need somewhere to put it, and that's where the media kit comes in. With the media pitch, you're that's basically the meat of why you're getting in touch with somebody in the media to begin with, right? You have to know what you want to share with them and why your book, your story is going to make an impact on the industry and make an impact with readers. You also have to know who you want to get in front of. So that's where the media list comes in, and you want to build a list because you don't want to be spending hours every single day looking for people to get in front of, right?
Yeah.
You want to be able to build a big enough list so that you can take your time sending out those emails. So if you have, let's say, 50 to 75 reviewers and podcasters, you can take your time going through that list and sending those emails, and you don't have to rush. You don't have to push yourself towards burnout. You don't have to feel like you're running out of time doing things. One of
Mm,
the things that I really stress in this book is to always prioritize your energy and prioritize your mindset. So always having those mantras, affirmations, and those tools and resources in place that remind you as an author that this is something I can take my time with. This is
mm,
something that I can break off a piece of a task and do it for half an hour today and still feel like I'm making progress with it, right? So these are the things that are sort of universal that I really keep emphasizing in the book. In terms of what's changed, well, there's things, that's the reason why I have the sections on how you need to change up your pitch depending on what type of media outlet you're pitching.
mhm,
Local media is probably seeing the biggest amount of change in the last 5 to 10 years because there have been buyouts and layoffs across the board, no matter which city you live in.
mm,
So, for any author that's looking for magazine features, you want a radio interview, you want an in studio TV interview, or you want to have a camera come out to whatever it is that you're doing, because all the reporters and journalists are covering numerous beats and numerous jobs now because their teams have shrunk. What they're looking for is different from maybe what they would have accepted as a story 10 to 15 years ago. So
mhm,
in the book, what I really stress, and I say this to my clients all the time, is if you're looking for that local media coverage, you have to go deeper than A, your book being set in that city, B, you being from that city, and C, even just talking about your book and your own lived experiences as to why you wrote this book. One of
mm,
my favorite examples I actually use in the book is, let's say your book has something to do with the importance of pet adoption, right? So, in order to take an angle that makes that interesting with local media, maybe you decide to do a series of fundraisers at animal shelters where not only are you donating some of the proceeds from your book sales to that particular animal shelter, you're signing books while you're there. You're doing a live Q&A where you talk to people about this is why pet adoption is important to me, and then you even expand on it and maybe take a children's angle or a family angle where you're educating kids about the importance of pet adoption and why you should be looking at animal shelters. That's the kind of story because it impacts the local community, it supports a local cause, and it really showcases to that local media that you're not just talking about your story or you're not just trying to sell your book. You're actually expanding beyond that and using your story and your book as a vehicle to make a positive impact on the local community. So
Mm,
something like that has really drastically changed in the last 10 years.
yeah.
So that's something that I really emphasize in the book as being really important to that. If you really want that local media angle, you have to dig deeper and show those outlets, show those reporters and producers what makes your story worth covering because you're making a positive impact on the local community with your book, right?
Mm,
So that's definitely something that's changed. There's other things that have changed in regards to some of the tools
mm,
and the resources and the platforms that I recommend in the book because a lot of them didn't exist 10 years ago.
right.
Some of them have gone up in price. Others have added functionality that allows an author to maybe you just buy this one tool and it can cut down time and energy on a couple of different areas for
Yeah.
you. Not just media research, but also monitoring when your interview goes live.
Yeah.
Maybe it's actually even going to help you create clips from your interviews and then you can share that a lot easier, right? So there is a more like there's more tools available today than there ever has been. And there's also, I think, um, what I really wanted to do with this book is to allow authors to see themselves
Mm,
in that case study, in that example, and actually taking action and creating that campaign. This book is meant to be a first step to get them thinking about how they can use publicity to achieve their goals and to allow them to also get to know me so that if
mhm,
they have additional questions, they need that personalized support, they have an understanding already of the type of support and guidance that I can give them. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because a lot of authors that I had spoken to in the past had also said to me, I've done those workshops, I've attended those webinars, I've read that blog series, and I feel like I've learned a lot. But where I get stuck is how to apply it to where I'm specifically at in my
mhm,
journey, or apply it to my specific genre, or to figure out how it's going to help me reach a particular goal.
mhm.
So, this book for me is really about giving them those case studies, those examples, and that knowledge to build that confidence so they can understand how it works,
Yeah.
start to build their own campaigns, and even more importantly, have the confidence to advocate for themselves when they work with somebody like me,
Yeah.
right? To actually stand up and go, these are my goals. This is where I want to take it. I'd rather we don't focus in a particular direction. All of these things it's really about helping an author get educated, get empowered, and to gain that confidence.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, for talking to us about your book, about your passion. I think anybody who has followed this channel, who's followed you, knows how much you poured your heart and soul into this industry, into this community. I am so excited and I'm proud of you for what you've done with the book. And for those who don't know Lilian very well or just now discovering Lilian today, I put the link to Lilian's website in the description box so you can go give her a follow. But Lilian, sort of like me with my editing, has said on past lives that just because we may edit and she may do PR coaching doesn't mean that we're trying to say everybody should get editing from me, everybody should get PR coaching from Lilian. And so I think that last point you made really drives home being able to advocate for yourself so that you can find the best fit. And Lilian's inbox has always been open when I've needed to send Lilian questions. And I'm sure that if you aren't sure whether you need a coach, aren't sure whether Lilian's a good fit, she's more than happy to help direct you on sort of where her values lie in that area. But look for people who pour in more than they ask out. And Lilian's one of those people, and this community has a bunch of industry experts like that. So look for that. People will talk very highly about the people we love in this community. We raise each other up. So thank you for all you do again. Everybody, check out Lilian's book. It's on a really good price right now on Amazon. So very excited about that. If you have any questions and you're watching the replay, please drop them in the comments. I will make sure Lilian gets them. And thank you all for watching. Best of luck, Lilian. Take care.
Thanks, Katherine. Appreciate it.